hands, like they go out.
Yeah.
Yeah, just show them.
Seems like you can balance out here too.
Yeah. So introduce yourself. Tell us who you are.
My name is Samir Undavia. I'm a facial plastic surgeon.
Awesome. So tell us your background. Where'd you go to college? Kind of how'd you get your start?
I'm an upstate New Yorker. I grew up in Binghamton, New York, which is
nice.
just on the border of Pennsylvania and New York.
Okay.
I went to high school and college in upstate New York.
Nice.
College was at the University of Rochester.
Oh, cool.
Near Buffalo. And then I went to med school in upstate New York, but it's actually just north of New York City.
Okay.
At New York Medical College. And then I went to residency in New York City.
Very nice.
Very nice.
Actually, had never been to Jersey before.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's funny. I'm familiar. I went to Geneseo, so I'm familiar with the area up there.
That's
Yeah.
our stomping grounds.
Yeah. So I guess once you were, in medical school, how did you pick ENT to be your concentration?
It's a good question. I get asked that a lot, and I think it was not something that I just decided one day. I think it was something like just by a lot of osmosis of information over the 4 years. Interesting, I'd never had an ear or nose infection. I'd never seen an ENT. I didn't even know that this specialty existed until my third year of medical school. My first year of medical school, a friend of mine said, ENT is a great specialty because you can do medicine and you can do surgery. Because most of what you do in medical school is broken up into medical stuff or surgical stuff.
Okay.
And then there's stuff that doesn't really fit in between, like radiology and nuclear medicine. But that just went over my head because I'd never even heard of ENT, so I didn't even realize it. But in my third year, I remember somebody saying that. And then I experienced some of the surgery. Most of what you get in medical school is the surgical aspect of it. And you have to seek it out. You don't just really get exposed to it.
Okay.
So what we were exposed to was the big head and neck cancer surgeries where people are like they're wide open and you're taking out big cancers, you're reconstructing them. And that part was neat. I think it was a bit of the anatomy that it's really, really intricate and really, really complicated, and that part was interesting to me. It was the fact that you could do medicine and you could do surgery, but probably the biggest factor for me was that you kind of know who you relate to in medical school. There are different personalities for each specialty, and it really holds true. And so I felt like I could relate to the ENT docs the most.
Why do you think? Oh, go ahead.
You think of like from a surgical perspective, there are like cowboys, the general surgeons, the neurosurgeons, and then there's the surgical subspecialties, which are a little bit different.
Okay.
Yeah, why do you think that is, that like different specialties kind of hold these certain personas typically?
I think the specialties themselves can be very differently demanding.
Okay.
So for instance, pediatrics, you tend to deal with the parents a lot, and you tend to deal with kids who are not really thrilled about being there and also don't really understand what you're doing. You have to be very lively, you have to be very happy-go-lucky, you have to be positive all the time, and that shows in the pediatricians. They're like that. They're very happy to see the kids. They're a lot of it is preventive care. Thankfully, you're not seeing like a ton of sick children all that often. When it comes to general surgery, those patients are very sick, so it is very demanding, and you kind of have to be very intense to deal with those patients, because if you're not their advocate, no one else will be, and there's lots of little things that can slip through the cracks. And so you have to be intense about the patient's care, and it shows in their personalities. Neurosurgeons, I'll regret saying this on camera, but they work a lot, and they like that. There aren't that many neurosurgeons, number one, but they're constantly. It's just a busy specialty. It's a very busy specialty, and those patients are also extremely sick. And then there's other surgical specialties where you kind of want your private time, plus you want to be able to do something with your professional career as well. And
Yeah.
so surgical specialties allow you to have a little bit of both of those.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, even going back to like when you were in high school, how did you know you wanted to go into the medical field? Was it like someone that like you looked up to that was in the medical field, or was it just something that you always had a draw to? Like, how did you know?
Well, first, my father is a psychiatrist.
Okay.
So I entertained the idea of it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was good at math and science and not really good at anything else. And so that was just what I entertained. And I think if I look back on it, I would have probably entertained other careers, although I'm not sure I would have done anything differently.
Okay.
Yeah.
What was the process like getting into medical school? I have a few friends that are now in medical school, and just seeing their journey and how difficult it was for them and how challenging and how much you need to put into like that process. Like, what was that like for you? And like, if you can give any advice to like
Horrifying.
kids.
It was horrifying. I will tell you first, I did not get into medical school my first time.
Okay.
So, and nobody should feel bad about that.
Yeah.
Because at least 1/3 of the students who do get into medical school did not get in on their first time. So part of the process is just showing that you have the persistence to do something more to try and get into medical school. So that was number one. But yeah, getting into medical school requires a 4-year degree. Then you have to take the MCATs. So I took the MCATs, and I had done some research and some volunteering, but clearly it wasn't enough compared to the other applicants. So when I didn't get in after my senior year of college, I did a research and master's program at New York Medical College, where I focused in on physiology. So I was doing more, I actually did cardiovascular research on rats.
Whoa.
And so yeah, it was not that easy to do in the beginning, but what it taught me was that it was really neat to do some basic science research, but I also got to do surgery. And and I first learned that I was good at it, but also it was just super interesting to do all those things. And it probably did spawn a little bit of my surgical career doing that. So I did master's, and then I applied again after having published some research and doing this research, and then also doing some of the classes in the master's program.
Wow. Do you remember like the first surgery you ever either participated in or observed, and like what was that like for you? Were you like in awe, or was it like kind of terrifying for you?
It was a little bit terrifying. I don't remember the exact first surgery, because as a medical student you get shuffled around a little bit.
Yeah.
But the first long surgery that I did was a liver surgery, and those surgeons are mean. And I remember it was 9 hours, and
oh my gosh.
you know, when you're at a teaching hospital, there's an attending surgeon, there's a chief resident, there's a junior resident, there's a scrub who's helping the surgeons operate by getting instruments and all that stuff, and then there's me. I'm last on the totem pole. So when you are doing a big belly case, you have to retract a lot. So I remember I was holding a retractor that was like this wide on the belly so that the surgeons could operate, and the surgeon kept on being like, hold your hand still, but I was like all the way out here trying to hold it, and it was like my 8th hour of doing this. My hand was shaking like that, and he's like, hold your hand still, and I was like, I can't, I don't know. So I had to constantly switch hands, and since you're the lowest on the totem pole, you get yelled at a lot and stuff. But I remember that, and it was a big liver cancer surgery case. That was a big one. And then you do small stuff like appendectomies and gallbladders, and you close wounds in the ER and that type of stuff.
Wow.
Very cool. Do you want to tell us a little bit about like your practice today and kind of how you how you've grown it and marketed it?
Yeah. Well, so this is my 13th year in practice.
Nice.
But it is my 2nd year starting our own practice.
Okay.
So I've changed things throughout the years, how we've marketed and how we've grown. But I was a part of an old practice before, which was a 6-person ENT group. And In that practice, I was doing about 50% ear, nose, and throat and 50% facial plastics.
Okay.
And that involved rhinoplasty, that involved skin cancer reconstructions, eyelids, ear surgery, all of that. And then we started our own practice. And it's been since June of 2022 that we've started our own practice. And we've done things pretty similarly, although I would say now about 80 to 85% of my practice is facial plastic surgery, and like 15 to 20% is ENT. We knew that since we started our practice, like there was 3 of us that started together, and we were going to be in a new area. What we did was we first needed to make sure our website was teed up. So, and we wanted to get a good web address. So we didn't want to skimp out on that one thing. We wanted to get a really good site. So we got njent.com and made it really easy. And we thought it'd have all the right ringers for just from a Google perspective.
Totally.
And it cost us a lot of money to get that one site.
Yeah.
I bet.
So, and it was free probably because it would cost a lot of money. So we did that. I was already used to posting pictures on Instagram. I haven't really done a whole lot with TikTok. It's just work, as you guys know. It is a lot of work. So I like to do before and after pictures on Instagram, Facebook, and we do a podcast together. We're doing a lot of ENT stuff, and I've kind of shied away from that a little bit now, and I do more just the facial plastic stuff.
Okay.
And just really trying to get more content out there. We've been doing a lot of that on the website and on social media.
Yeah, I think it's so fun, and not just you, but like a lot of other physicians like showing their personality online. I think it's so cool because not only is it like allowing the patient to kind of get to know like who's going to be taking care of them, but like it also allows you to like put yourself in a different light that's not just like the structured like medical like, you know, it's
Patients
really
think they
cool.
love that part.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we said this yet, but I actually had a rhinoplasty done by you. It was amazing. Best decision I have ever made. I'm obsessed. I've recommended you to so many people. And I think just from word of mouth too, like I'm sure you get a lot of people, because that's how I found you. Was I had a friend who had, you know, a rhinoplasty done by you, and she had a great experience and immediately felt comfortable like with you. Just like your bedside manners is something that honestly I've never like experienced in the medical field, and I think that's so refreshing because I think that's something that's needed more, I think.
Thanks.
I don't know, from your perspective, like kind of how did you decide to like, or how did you develop bedside manners like that? Because I feel like there's not many doctors that have that inclination.
I don't know the answer to that question. I do enjoy seeing patients and talking to patients. And a lot of, as in any job, a lot of what you do can be very routine and replaceable. Like, you know, maybe 50% or 60% of my job could be replaced by a physician assistant or somebody else. So I have to like, so those things can become very routine and can be boring. So I actually enjoy talking to the patients. It's like one of the fun things about being a physician. So I enjoy it. And I think that's a big part of what I want to do in the room. Because finding a deviated septum or, you know, from an ENT perspective, like cleaning out wax or something, it can get boring. But talking to the patient about what they did that summer, what, you know, all that can be fun at the same time. Of course, there are very challenging things like rhinoplasty, extremely challenging, which another reason why I like facial plastic surgery. But when you think about making your day go better, probably a big part of my day is just the social aspect of talking to patients. I like that a lot. I like that a lot.
And even like just owning your own practice, I mean, there's a lot that comes with it besides the patient aspect and the surgery aspect. Like you also are creating a team, and you have a team of people that you have to kind of like, you know, build and create this environment for. Like that's also, you know, it's not always what like the first thing comes to mind when you start like your own practice or business. It's like you're responsible for a lot more than just like your role. Like there's a lot that goes into it. How do you find people that really fit like the type of like work ethic you're looking for and patient, interaction? Like how do you vet people for that?
It is difficult. It is difficult. We are very fortunate. Number one, we have an unbelievable staff right now. We, two things. First thing is that we have had a lot of staff leave the old practice and follow us here. We didn't ask them to do that, but they wanted to do that. And that was a nice kind of pat on our back that they enjoyed working with us. But it also was nice. They really know what our practices are and what we like, and they like that too.
Yeah.
So, about being professional, about the patient experience and all of that, there's that aspect. There's also just a lot of our staff has been through word of mouth also. Answering ads and stuff can be difficult. You just don't know what they've done. People don't always give you like their whole history of what happened, and you don't know. But like when it comes from a friend or another staff member saying, I would like my friend to work here also, that to me is like, I don't even need to interview them. If they want to work with them, and these are people that we've worked with for years. If they want to work with them, I think it's going to be just fine, because ultimately we want to get the patients taken care of. We want to make things as efficient as possible, and without any, hassle during the day. I think that has been the biggest thing. Is just as far as the practice is concerned, is managing staff and making sure like everybody gets along and everybody is doing what they need to be doing. That part can be difficult sometimes.
Definitely.
What's like the split for you of doing like doctor things versus doing like practice management things?
Well, I would say I would have never thought about it this way, but when the three of us started our practice, we came from a practice that had an office manager do everything. So we were doing 100% only physician stuff. I was also doing social media stuff at the time, but that would be it. There was zero administrative stuff. Now the three of us don't have an office manager. We are the office managers. So we are doing everything, from filling out applications for insurances to doing payroll to doing all that. So we're doing that. It still probably only involves 10% of our day at most. I think the one thing, and I know we were going to get to this anyways, the one thing that we were terrified of when it came to starting our practice was running our practice. And that would be the one thing I would tell everybody. It's not that hard. You should do it. It's not that hard. Once you get some systems in place, anybody can do it.
Wow. Did you have prior experience like working under like did you ever work in a hospital setting or in like what did you ever like take something away from that? Like, oh, I don't really like this environment. Like what kind of led you to like wanting to, be your own boss?
Well, I think part of it is just you get to really, in medicine, there's a whole movement towards just becoming employed by a hospital or a big system. There's comfort in that. There's one of the biggest problems with being a physician is the call schedule. So if you are your own boss, you're on call all the time for yourself and for your patients. Plus you're on call for the ER and stuff. So that part can be daunting. We did that in the past, but now that so first of all, there's three of us, so we get to share that responsibility. We had all when we left residency and fellowship, we joined a private practice, which means you're not employed by a hospital system. You're employed by a group or another physician or whatever it is. And then there's a partnership track and all of that. But that was what all three of us did. We were never employed by a physician. We were all employed by a hospital or a private equity group or something. We did work in the hospital though, and so you see how other people work in the hospital. As a part of being a physician, you have to understand like cost structures for patients, financial implications for patients, and when you understand that, you end up having to understand a lot of what it takes to run a practice at the same time, just because it spills into everything else. Like all of it is there's overlap and everything. So you tend to learn a little bit of all of that when I wasn't a practice owner.
Yeah.
But the beautiful thing now is that the three of us do it, and we do it together, and we do it. We're all learning as we do it, and we're so eager to build this business that we're doing it together, and we've not once said, "Oh, I wish I had an office manager. Didn't have to do this." Like we're doing this excitingly, like to get the practice going.
Yeah. Wow.
Do you feel like that's important for you to work on it like on your own without having an office manager, like as you kind of get things going? Or
absolutely. I think nobody cares about your business or practice the way you do. And if somebody just for instance, buying supplies, if you're buying product X from business Y versus business A, like there could be two different prices, but if it was somebody that didn't have like a real they didn't really care about what the costs were, they would just buy from the more expensive place if that's the easier thing. But for us, we know like we're still getting the same product, we're still using the same product on our patients, but we bought it from a cheaper place. Like it helps our business grow. It helps us keep our costs down and all that.
Totally.
And other things are like it is in my best interest to make sure our staff is happy. When you go to these big institutions where it's more anonymous, nobody cares about you as much, and they have higher turnover. We don't want any turnover on our, number one, our staff has been trained and we like them. We want to continue working with them. So treating them appropriately, like even when things go wrong a little bit, or treating them like with kindness even when things go wrong, can be very helpful in maintaining that relationship, which I don't think would happen in a hospital setting as much.
That's super refreshing to hear, honestly, because I mean, in a prior lifetime I worked at a hospital and I did that for a few years, and I left feeling very disappointed in how the staff was treated, because the staff is directly interacting with the patient. So like, why wouldn't you want to boost up your staff and make sure that they're treated well, because it's going to be a direct reflection on the care that's being given to the patient. So I really appreciate that's
I think
important too.
There was a massive exodus of nurses and physicians during COVID and right after COVID, and that was a big part of it. They just didn't feel appreciated. So why are we risking our lives when nobody's really appreciating us? Yeah,
it's so true. I'm curious about work-life balance. Was that something going into this that was important to you, especially being a physician? I feel like that tends to sometimes be skewed one way or the other for people.
Yeah, it was incredibly important. I think before we started our own practice, I would be killing myself, seeing patients all day. And I was present for my patients, but the minute I got home, I was not present for my family, not for my kids, not for my wife. I was spent, exhausted. And I did that for 10 years, running like a chicken without a head, just running. And so now, as we make decisions about what we want to do in our practice, the first thing I think of is what's going to happen to my workout schedule. I worked out 0 in my old practice, and now I need to work out an hour and a half every morning. I will move patients. I will make sure my schedule is appropriately changed so that can continue to happen. And that's a big part of our new practice is work-life balance. And you can't really be a good physician if you're not balanced outside of being a physician.
So true.
Yeah, I think that's so important. There's a lot of debate right now, I think, about work-life balance, where some people are saying that, if you're doing something that you're into, you don't need balance because you're doing something you're passionate about. But I really agree with you in that to take care of other people, including your family, your patients, you really have to take care of yourself first. And that's so important. And I mean, I'm sure you've experienced this too, but I've experienced myself, sometimes when I feel like work is the most important thing and I let certain things like that slip, I can kind of feel the mental and the physiological degrading. Even if it's short term, I can kind of feel myself slipping in certain ways. So
absolutely.
Definitely.
Well, it's not only in just how you behave at work, it's things going on in your body. For instance, my blood pressure before I started my practice was 160/110. clearly, 160 over 90, sorry, clearly elevated, and too elevated for somebody my age. And as soon as I was able to stop, like rethink what we were doing, get that back into, like get working out back into my balance, I was able to drop it down to 120 over 70. Everything got better. My sleep got better. Like I lost weight. It was all better just because of the balance. I think it's super important.
Yeah.
Even if you love your job. But I loved my job before. It was too much.
Yeah. So kind of, I'm so curious, just to kind of let everyone know about like what you specialize in, kind of talk to us about like some of the procedures that you perform and all of that.
I would say 80% of my surgical, or 90% of my surgical experience is just rhinoplasty.
Okay.
That is what I do. That is what I love to do. It is by far the most complicated plastic surgery thing you can do. And the reason is like, it's kind of like that game Whack-A-Mole where you have a maneuver, you do that maneuver, but that causes something else to happen. You have to like constantly like do this thing where you have a certain goal in mind, but achieving that goal has consequences. You have to plan appropriately to make sure that that you have made sure the breathing's okay, made sure this is going to heal right, all of those things. And even with that, sometimes it doesn't heal the way you want. Like no matter, I could do the same operation 10 times and it may not heal the same way 10 times.
Yeah.
So it makes things a little bit more difficult, and that's why rhinoplasty is difficult. But I think 80% is rhinoplasty. Of the other things we do, also a lot of sinus stuff. It just goes with the nose. So if somebody wants the outside of their nose done, they may also have sinusitis or difficulty breathing, so you're fixing a septum or you're doing stuff like that.
Okay.
We do a lot of skin cancer reconstructions. So patients will have a lesion on their face, only of the neck and face, by the way. Patients will have a lesion. They'll see a dermatologist. Your dermatologist biopsies it, says that it's a skin cancer. They do something called a Mohs surgery, which is where they take out the borders, they look at it under the microscope, make sure that's all cleaned out, and then they're left with a defect. And then they come to somebody like me and we close it in a way that doesn't distort the other surrounding structures or distort functionality of the face.
Okay.
So we do that. And then there's just general ENT stuff, like patients with recurrent sinusitis, ear infections, sore throats, that type of stuff.
Do you feel like your job involves a lot of creativity?
For rhinoplasty, absolutely. For aging face stuff, like when we do eyelids, facelifts, it's less creative. There's still some creativity with it, but it's just less creative. For the nose, it's a lot of like I remember in training, my attending physician said, how are we gonna, like, we needed to deproject a nose, so we went like this. So he said, okay, he's like, how are we gonna do that? So I told him what I thought we were gonna do that for that day, and he said, I agree, that's what we're going to do for this day, but I need to know 7 other ways to do it. And so you need to have a different way of doing it in case it doesn't work that time. And then that's where it becomes creative, because when you get into the nose, it's not what you expect, and you have to change the plan right away on the operating room table and be able to complete it, on the operating room table.
Do you try and preserve, the look of someone's face, or do you do it fully based on what their goal is, even if you don't think it is the right fit for them?
You have to go by what the patient wants.
Okay.
You just always have to. But you can be honest with them about what you think it may do to their face.
Okay.
For instance, I had a patient who, she was 6'1" or 6'2", and she really wanted like an upturned nose with a scoop. And the only thing I could say is, I'm happy to do it for you, but everybody is shorter than you, and they are going to be looking up your nose. So you have to think about that. And then we ended up changing the plan a little bit. Other patients still want it, no matter what. Like, not just that, but like they want
that is such a
really
look.
nose. Yeah. But you, believe it or not, a lot of what you do for the nose, can be patient preference.
Okay.
There's some limits that I have to put on it, but like some patients may want a really small nose or a really big nose. You can do that actually. The question is whether you should or not. And with our morphing technology, you can show them. So you may not think it would look good, and you show them, and then they could say, "Oh yeah, I don't like that." Or even I've been surprised. Sometimes I'm like, "Oh wow, that does look really good." So you a lot of what you do is math with the nose.
Okay.
So for instance, the nose is 1/5 of the width of the face. It's 1/3 of the height of the face. There's angles that we know about. This angle, this length right here should be 55% of this length right here. So when I'm doing the morphing, I'm using those numbers to try and like get a nose to look appropriate. But and then you once you get that in play, then you can morph it a little bit more how the patient wants.
Yeah, I remember during our consult, in my mind, I was like, I had a more projected nose. There was a hump, there was a lot of concerns that I had. And in my mind, I'm like, oh, I just want that cute little scoop nose. But I remember you saying, and I kind of, trusted you. And I was like, I know that he knows what he's doing. And I remember you saying you have a more prominent chin. So it's like you don't want too small of a nose or else it's not going to look proportional.
Yeah.
And I was like, that kind of makes sense.
Like you want the nose to fit your face and your body.
Yeah. It's crazy. I remember after I got it done, and it was probably only like a few weeks after, and I went back to work, and I was like, I don't even see a difference. I was like, perfect. It's like, that's just what I wanted. Like, I just wanted to still look like myself, and I was very excited. But there was one thing I remember getting the cast off, and I was so swollen.
Yes.
And I remember you saying it's going to take a year, and I'm like, oh, there's no way. Like, oh, it was just like so swollen. It really does take a year, and then you're like, oh, okay, this is fine. This is all going to be fine.
It takes a year, and technically at a year you're only 90%
there.
You still have little nuances that happen for 2 to 3 years.
Yeah. Wow.
Do people ever bring in like pictures of celebrities and say like, oh, I want this? Yeah.
And you could draw it for them, and then they see that maybe that's not the nose for them. Like they just like that look. There's something about that look that they like. But other times it's super helpful because something that you might not have drawn on there, you can see in that picture, and you say, well, you liked this aspect, like a scoop or whatever, and I could show them what that would look like, and sometimes they like it.
Interesting.
That is interesting. So we have some rapid fire questions.
Okay, fire.
We love to do this with people. We did not send them to you. Some of them are more serious, some are fun. So take as long or as short as you need to answer them.
Okay.
You want to?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay.
If you had an extra 2 hours each day to take up a hobby, which one would you take up?
Woodworking.
Ooh. Okay.
Yeah. I just bought a book on Amazon, 100 woodworking weekend projects.
Oh, cool.
I bought it last night.
Oh, that's awesome.
Oh, really?
I've been thinking about doing that with my son just because we want to be able to do something.
Yeah.
And I'm always looking at people doing construction in a jealous way. And a lot of people do construction just on the face.
Yeah.
But I think that's what I would like to do.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
What's the longest surgery you've ever performed?
I have been myself have performed. I have been...
Or been a part of?
Yeah. I have been in... I did a facelift rhinoplasty, and that took 8 hours.
Wow. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Do you get like bathroom breaks?
You can go to the bathroom. You can go take a lunch break. But you have to remember, for cosmetic surgery, patients are paying for the time. It's not like you can just go and take an hour break.
Yeah.
That's a lot of money. So you go to the bathroom when you need to, and then you're also not going to be a great surgeon if you don't eat anything. So you take a good 10 minutes to just like wolf something down. Yeah.
That's crazy.
What's your favorite type of cuisine?
Oh, that's a great question. I think I'm like the kind of guy that would just love some ice cream and some potato chips.
Nice.
That sounds
awesome.
like her.
That's a chocolate chip cookies. Yes.
What's an interesting fact about surgery or the human body that someone doesn't know about that stuff would find interesting?
There's a couple. So first, not one person on this planet is symmetric in any way. Like leg length,
Wow.
face, they're completely asymmetric. Completely asymmetric. If you really got down to nitty gritty, like one nostril is higher, one nostril is smaller, one ear is folded a little differently.
Really?
Yes, is completely true. Not a single person. That's why they say Brad Pitt is really good looking, because he's closest to being symmetric. Fully symmetric.
Interesting.
Yes. Yeah. If I think of others, I'll come back to that.
Okay, cool.
What is your dream vacation destination?
That's a snowboarding vacation. Always. That's all I do is snowboard.
That's awesome.
Do you have a favorite spot to go?
We have been, I go with a couple of guys, we go every year, and we've been all over. I think our favorite spot to date was probably, well, favorite for different, I could have a couple for different reasons, but the best snowboarding spot we ever went to, I think, was Whistler in Canada.
Whoa.
That was fun.
Very cool.
We also got like really lucky with the weather and all of that.
Is that on the East Coast or
West Coast,
West Coast?
just above Vancouver.
Oh, okay.
Cool.
Yeah,
Cool.
British Columbia. Yeah.
Nice. What is your morning routine on the day of a surgery?
I get up and shower and I hit the road.
Yeah, it's probably early.
I have tea. Yes, that's the problem. Is I have an hour commute to get here.
Oh,
Okay.
So I
Yeah.
just I have tea in the car and I listen to some music, and then we check in the patient and we get started. But it's always about listening to music, actually.
Nice. Do you listen to music during surgery?
Definitely.
I feel like I asked you that
Yes.
the day of
Yeah,
my
you
surgery.
did.
Yeah.
She was so curious before you came in.
Yes.
I was like, I don't think they listen to music. I don't think so. I think it's pretty quiet in there.
No, it gets boring. You need to listen to music. It's nice when everybody wants to listen to the same thing. But I'm not big into like heavy metal, and I'm not big into country. So long as those two things are satisfied, we can listen to everything.
Yeah.
But believe it or not, Spotify has OR channels.
No
Yeah,
way.
if you just Google, like, one of the nice ones now is like OR music for millennials.
Oh my
It's pretty
gosh.
good. Yeah.
Is it just like chill stuff or
No,
it's just anything?
Good. It's just anything. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so cool.
Yeah, when I was in medical school, we had a 70-year-old attending who was listening to Eminem.
Oh my God.
Hardcore.
That's awesome.
What does success mean to you?
It used to mean something different. It used to just mean money back then, about 3 years ago. And now I have a completely different philosophy. It really has to do with work-life balance. And it has to do with being able to do like all the fun things you want to do. And it came after reading a single book called Die with Zero. Have you guys read that?
No.
Who is it by?
It's he's a finance guy.
Okay.
Oh, if I remember his name, I'll tell you.
We're going to look it up later.
Oh, definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're big
It's
into
a
those
book
books.
that I think every person on this planet should read,
Okay.
regardless of income level. You got to read this book, and it changed how I look at everything now.
Wow.
And the premise of it is you have to look at your life as having a finite amount of time, and you have to look at it from not only just like your overall, if you're going to live to 90, it doesn't mean that you have 40 or 50 or 60 years left, because some of those years are not going to be productive. So you have to look at it as, I only have 4 more years with my 13-year-old while they're here. So I have 4 more summers before he goes to college. I have 30 more years where I could snowboard. And, you can do that math, and you could say, all right, well, I've got 30 seasons to snowboard. I'm going to pick somewhere where I go every year. Right? You just plan out your year. It doesn't mean you actually die with zero, although the author really wants you to make that argument. But it says you've got to be thoughtful with the time that you have.
Yeah.
And so you got to make the best of it.
That's really cool.
That's kind of like what we're all about. I think we both worked 9-to-5 jobs for the first few years of our careers, and I think there's a big movement, at least with people our age, that we really just want a good work-life balance and to really have control over our time.
Yeah.
and whatever that looks like, that looks different to everyone, but just really enjoying every moment of your day and not feeling like you're stuck or you're unhappy, because it's like life is so short. It's like you really want to make sure you're like checking all those boxes, and when you get down to the wire, it's like you don't want to look back and be like, man, I should have just took that leap or like gone on that trip. So
that's the whole book. You should read it. And it's such an easy read. I don't even think it's written that well, but the idea is really good.
Awesome.
Really cool.
They have like there's a whole like the subject matter of like finite amount of time. There's like a death calculator online.
Oh my gosh.
You could figure out when you think you are going to die, and then you could I haven't done this yet, but you could say, all right, my genetics and my generation likely going to live until they're 85, 90. That means I have this amount of time. This is what I'm going to do. And like you could just really be very productive with your time.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah.
I always find it interesting when you put stuff into summers, because it drastically like changes the perspective on something. Like when you think about it, it's like only 5 more summers until like this, or it's like it's crazy.
Absolutely. When I read this, I realized that my son was going to be graduating from high school, and I better get my act together, and I do some of them. Yeah, I can't just be working all the time.
Yeah, that's a great way to look at it. Yeah. I love like I never actually read the book, but the Peter Attia wrote Outlive.
That was our so that was one of the things we did. One of the real dorky things that I've done since we started our own practice is I joined a book club with a couple of my friends.
Oh, really?
And the first book we read was To Die With Zero, and the second book we read was Longevity by Peter Attia.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Or Outlive by Peter Attia.
Yeah. And it's just like it's sort of the same topic, but a completely different angle of like he's not talking, I don't think, about anything super philosophical, but it's more like you have these years to live, but towards the end, you might have 20 years, your last 20 years of life are like whatever. You can't.
What they are right now.
Yeah, and you
won't
can't
have
like
the same abilities.
go play tennis or whatever, or go lift weights, and so like I guess you probably know better, but he talks about like extending that and and stuff like that. So
medicine.
Really cool.
In order to, he did the math, and I can't do the math for you right now, but he did the math on what it would take as a 30-year-old to do some hike, and the energy and fitness level that you need to be able to achieve that. And then he did the same math for an 80-year-old, and it's not just a linear curve. In order to be able to do this simple hike again at the age of 80, you need to be above and beyond in your fitness level just to be able to do that and not get injured. It was a really good exercise, and that was one of the reasons that I started working out a lot.
Oh, really cool. Okay. Yeah.
Definitely need to read both of those.
Yeah. Give us your favorite part about being a doctor.
It is it's the smile when I walk into the room at like one of the post-op visits, when you could tell that the confidence is just through the roof now. That is my favorite. That's my favorite. The other favorite is right after we finish an operation, where I literally, I don't know if you told this, but it is the most stressful time is the 30 minutes before the surgery is done for me.
Really?
Where I obsess about every little detail on the nose or whatever it is, and there's things that I just feel like I can't fix, and I see things that patients aren't even seeing, like that just bother me. But as soon as I say, okay, I can't do it anymore, and I put the before and after picture together, and that is also very satisfying. That then, okay, you did it. Like you did what you're supposed to do.
Yeah. Oh, very cool. What was the first surgery that you ever performed on your own?
It was a rhinoplasty. No, that's not true. Well, you do surgeries on your own as a resident. There's somebody there to watch you while you're doing it. So those are probably just like ear tubes on kids.
Okay.
What is that?
Like kids who get lots of ear infections. You can put a tube in their ear. It just helps prevent their infections.
Oh, okay.
It's something that junior residents do a lot. And then as an attending, my first surgery was actually during fellowship, where you are training under as a fellow. So you've already completed residency and you're a doctor.
Okay.
But you can then do extra training, which is what I did in facial plastic surgery. And as a part of that fellowship, you then train residents at the same time. So I had to be the attending of record on a septal perforation surgery. So that was my first surgery.
Oh, wow.
And that was a very difficult surgery for me. That was,
Wow.
I remember that. That was like a 4-hour thing, and I was stressed out the whole time. And then the second surgery was also equally difficult. That was I did fellowship for facial plastic surgery in Houston.
Mm-hmm.
Houston, University of Texas has the largest trauma center in the world.
Wow.
They have 7 helipads or something like that.
Oh my God.
People flying in from all over Texas, which is a huge state, just to get trauma surgery. So the patient that I saw had trauma to her face, and we had to do a bunch of facial fractures, and we didn't get to start until like 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. and we didn't finish until the middle of the night because it was just the way that
it was an emergency. Wow.
And I knew that I had stuff to do the next day, so I didn't want to do it at 7 a.m. I wanted to do it now and be done with it.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. What's one piece of advice you would have for an aspiring physician?
I have gotten away so far away from med school. It's definitely to find, this worked for me. It's to find a good mentor and really latch on. And there's a lot that you learn as a student being around other students, but you really learn so much more when you're around a mentor, like only one person, and like really learning. And that's a lot of what facial plastic surgery training was like. You're only with one person, but when you're with them attached to the hip, you learn everything that they know. And so during my grad school, I was with a mentor that I learned so much from. I think that's the biggest thing, is just like finding somebody that you can ask questions to, like somebody you look up to, and somebody that can like give you opportunities to do more.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to ask, or any other questions? Okay. So I guess share where you're located, Instagram, website, all that good stuff. So if anyone wants to find you, they can find you.
We have 2 websites. One is njent.com. Another one, just for my plastic surgery portion for right now, is drundavia.com. Okay. We have Instagram, and actually my partner has readysinus.com.
Oh, cool.
Okay. REDDY sinus.com. And then we have our Instagram page is just at New Jersey ENT. I also have my Instagram page, which is at Dr Samir Undavia. We are located in Marlton, New Jersey, just outside of Cherry Hill, just outside of Philadelphia. And yeah.
Cool.
Very cool. Awesome. I have to say, I love the hashtag. I don't know if you still use it, but
I know his nose.
Oh yeah.
We used to say it all the time.
Yeah, we still say it.
She would say how good her nose looked, and I say he knows nose.
Yes, I love that.
It's good branding. Yeah.
It is.
I was trying to think of what to say, and we were just like huddled around. I was talking to some people, and I just came up with it like that.
Yeah, it's good.
Oh, that's awesome.
I love it.
Cool. Well, thank you so much for having us. We're very excited.
Yeah, I'm excited for your business to grow too.
Thanks. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's great to be a business owner. It's great to be your own boss and try and promote your own self in your business.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. Cool. All right.
Cool. Very good.
Awesome. Thank you.